Kim, this is thrilling for me, and let me tell you why. As you walked in, I said, we've had a relationship for 25 years, and I'll bridge the gap or all of those dots. I voted for you, actually campaigned for you, and we're going to skip ahead a little bit. I'm going to start with the mayoral race,
Okay.
but I want to start with, why did you lose the election? I want to hear it from you.
Well, Jamie, thank you for having me. I was honored that you reached out,
Thank
and
you.
it's great to have start my morning with a conversation with you. So, I think I felt so good going into the runoff, and what the runoff taught me is that you had to make tremendous sacrifices in order to convince people to come your way. It was my opponent did a really good job about consolidating, and he made lots of promises. And when I went into the election, I made a commitment to my team and to me that I was going to be true to myself. I was going to be true to my values. I was not going to make promises, and I felt like that was it. I wouldn't compromise. And up until the runoff, it was a great experience, but that was a tough one. People coming to you with coalitions of groups that would come your way if you would make promises.
Support you.
Yes. So I felt like I gave it my all, and I really felt good, if you can, on election night that I was true to myself, and I felt good about the way I ran my campaign, and I wanted people that volunteered for me to feel good about the way I ran my campaign. So that's why.
I have a hard time swallowing the reality that we have these Democratic mayors in the 3 or 4 major cities in Tennessee, and we are in an 86% conservative Republican state. But it's the concentration that's inside those cities that makes that a reality.
Yes.
And I've long had this theory that people are trying to get into, from the Democratic side, get into these races just so they can get into the machine, if you will. And it doesn't always feel genuine to me when some of like the past few mayors that we've had, and for the record, my favorite to this point in time has been Bob Corker. We'll go down that path here in a little bit. But that there's like this thing on the other side of being a Democratic mayor at the civil level where, you see people like Stacey Abrams, who ran for mayor and lost and wound up with an NGO that got $1.8 billion.
Yes.
And there's almost like this nefarious sort of like goal. I'm going to run for mayor, but it's because there's this machine that's operating through the federal government that is facilitating money and power and influence on the other side. Am I wrong in saying that, or is there some of that going on with this ground game for Democrats and starting kind of at the mayoral level?
No, I think you're exactly right. It's been interesting to watch with everything going on, the federal government with DOGE, what they're finding. And I said, I believe it because I experienced it in a small way running for office. And afterwards, you can start connecting the dots.
So I want to tell you about me for just a second so that I can pair it to, your path from graduating from UTC, through coming back to Chattanooga, and then the powerful relationships and positions that you've held. I was telling Harriet last night, I was like, Kim's not a boss babe. And she was like, well, what is she? I was like, she's a beast babe. She's like, what's a beast babe? I'm like, that's what's after a boss babe.
I love it.
And for someone who employs 98% women, I'm for anything that is female empowerment, because you have to know what's possible, because you could be giving someone the inspiration that I could be that, or I could do that too. Especially I think for young girls, and I've got 2, right? I mean, most of my life is just women, and so I look at people like you, and I'm like, there's people that you've inspired, and you don't even know it, and that's awesome to me. So I came to Chattanooga in in 2000, and I was a Series 7 and 66. I was a stockbroker. We were trading stocks, slinging tech stocks all the way into the crash. And my mother-in-law has been a tremendous influence in my life, and co-founder with my father-in-law for Hairbenders International here on Gun Barrel. And I got a job through Susan Johnson at UBS in the old Crystal Building.
Yes.
And, Jeff
Cronin.
And so super fraternity brother of mine, different schools, but fraternity brother of mine, and that was my first professional relationship in Chattanooga. And so I was in the Crystal Building. I was their youngest hire, and Jeff liked me so much that he sent me to New York on September 9th, 2001. And 2 days later, I saw the second plane hit the World Trade Center live from a mile, and it started my trajectory to like becoming a hairdresser, because I just gone through the tech bubble crashing, and to have this one of the largest catastrophes in such a short period of time affecting my career, right? The value of my skill set in such a dramatic way. I was like, I've got to do something else in my life. And so anyway, I came back from New York, and J. Frank Harrison was still alive. Okay.
Yes.
And I know Jay Frank, and I know you had a relationship with him, and you guys were all part of the downtown transformation. And he shared an office right next to us in the Talon building. And once a year, he would drive his Ferrari F1 McLaren to work, and it was a big deal. And I just got into Chattanooga, and everyone's running around the office. Jay Frank drove his Ferrari. Jay Frank drove. I was like, who's Jay Frank Harrison? Everybody looked at me like I was an idiot. I'm like, guys, I just got here. Okay, I don't know who. So they were like, yeah, he's just the 96% owner of Coca-Cola CCE. And I was like, oh. And I was like, okay, that resonates with me. And so I went, and I'd just come back from New York. And when I was in Atlanta, the Rob Report would come out with a supercar edition once a year. So there'd be 2 magazines with the plastic around it. And on the cover of the magazine was his Ferrari. And I went and saw his car. I can still remember the smell of the leather. I was like, wow. And there was like 7 miles on him. He drove it up the mountain, down the mountain, call it a day. Or no, around the river. He lived on the river. And and so I took my card, and I put it in the Rob Report and dropped it in his front seat. And as I'm coming back in the door, there's George Scomberg, Jeff Cronin, like all these people that have been with J.C. Bradford for years and years. And they're like, are you looking for clients in the parking lot? And I was like, if you don't go elephant hunting, you never catch an elephant. So part of our daily ritual was to meet at the water cooler, which is just where we got our mail in the morning before the bell rang, right? And I'm going through my mail, and I'm standing next to Jeff, and there's a Coke embossed envelope, and Jeff goes, he just looks down, he goes, give me that. I didn't get to open it. He goes, give me that. And we had a good relationship. It was like a little brother kind of thing. And it says, dear Jamie, thank you for thinking of me. There's a lot of beautiful cars in this magazine, and mine happens to be one of them. And he said, tell you what, I'm going to stop by here in the next couple of days, and we'll sit down and talk. And they were floored.
What a great story.
And I was like, oh my God, I was on cloud nine. I was like, showed all you guys, because I was I've always been a little, I was cocky when I got to Chattanooga. Okay, I'll just say that. But it was just to have a little bit of redemption, because I was getting the hazing that you should be getting when you're starting off at a new job, right? And it was like the next day or the day after that he died from a heart attack. And I was in George Scomberg's office at the corner of the Crystal Building. He goes, you're not going to believe this, Jamie. And he showed me the paper, and I was like, because I was wondering why he didn't come by. Wow. And it was like the biggest moment, you know what I mean? Like if he threw me a small bone as a financial advisor, right? You know what I mean? Yes. It would have been, I was like, I'm doing business with Jay Frank here.
Yes.
Anyway, I knew after talking with Jeff, because I kind of mentored underneath him, that we were cutting our checks, our rent checks. He's like, yeah, I got to cut a check to Bob. And I'm like, Bob, who? And he's like, the Corker Group. And I believe, and at that time, 2001, 2002, are you the head of the Corker Group at that time?
2003.
2003.
Yeah.
Okay, I was still there in 2003.
Okay.
So you started with him and managing the groups. And so we were still writing you a rent check.
Yes.
And so how vast was his his network at that time of real estate in the Chattanooga area?
He had 2 million square feet. And 1 million was downtown. So downtown, he owned the Crystal, the Talon, the Volunteer Building, the James Building. So significant buildings with significant people that were in those buildings. And it was a great, God, that was such a great introduction for me to meet people that were, you normally wouldn't. They had offices, and I had ended up having great relationships with lots of people because of that.
So let me ask you this. What do you think it was about the interview process where he said, I choose you?
Well, I mean, I think in a way I was fearless like you, putting your card in Frank Harrison's, car. When I got to town, I had been in the telecommunication industry for 16 years, and I was on this corporate trajectory, and I moved and moved. I moved my husband, and we moved 6 times. And after 16 years, when they called me in Florida and said we were being transferred again, it was a wake-up call. And so we chose to come to Chattanooga at a time. We had 5 cities maybe 4 cities that we looked at: Charleston, Asheville. But I had family still here. We'd been coming over the years. And we came on the 4th of July when Corker was mayor. And there was so much fantastic energy in the city.
It was awesome.
We both knew it's Chattanooga. We got to move to Chattanooga. So I came here without a job, without any idea what I wanted to do, just knew I didn't want to do telecommunications again. And that was way before Facebook and internet was big. And so it was like you read magazines, you look at newspapers. So I just started making lists of people that were doing all kinds of things. Fearless like you, I didn't know who these people were, and I just started cold calling. These were people in town like Jack Murrah with Lyndhurst.
Sure.
I had a list of 20. I think I still have that list. And I just called and gave my spiel about, I'm originally from Chattanooga. I've been in the corporate world for 16 years. I'm passionate about my city. I want to come try to find my way. Do you have 15, 20 minutes for me just to sit down and get an understanding of maybe some opportunities and where I could use my skill set, something like that? And everybody, maybe one didn't, everybody, maybe 1 or 2, sat down with me and spent time with me. And the first person said, hey, you seem to have such love for our city. You need to meet our mayor, Bob Corker. I'm like, that's great. I will sometime. Well, after the third person in that process said that, I cold called Bob over Christmas at City Hall. And, if you have his attention at all, it's very short. So I did my spiel. We set up a 15-minute appointment. I went in and talked to him for probably an hour, and I talked to him over several months.
He gave you an hour.
Yeah. Because one, he was like, why would you quit a job to come to a city that, he wanted to know all the background. So I guess I talked to him over several months. I thought I was talking to him about a job at the city. And I think he was trying to figure out what would be a good fit, too. And maybe it was my persistence. Every time he spoke, I made sure I was at one of his events. Maybe it was my follow-up. But eventually, I sat down, and they offered me a job to come work for him without a title to begin with. Let's just see how, because I'm a very good networker, and leasing
Clearly.
and management is it's networking, and it's finding those connections. And so it was a fantastic fit. One, I was hungry to learn about our city. I'd been moved so many times, I never got to be involved in a city. So I went in knee deep, and it was a great fit. And after 3 months, he came to me and said, I want you to run my company.
What?
So it was, but I went there without a title, or let's just see how this works. Because one, it was really intimidating. I didn't have a real estate background other than buying and selling houses myself, and buying, being involved on the corporate end of it. So there was a lot to learn, and working for someone who I knew had very high expectations. It was a good safeguard, I think, for both of us. But it was great. It was. It really made me love the city even more. It connected me with so many wonderful people. If you can negotiate across the table, negotiate leases, And I will say, so many people worked on my campaign have become so good friends that's every start of every relationship. It's just you get to know who people are and what they're all about. So it was and I think working for Bob made me love the city even more, and I got to see how I wasn't political at that point, but I saw that if you really wanted to make a difference in a city, there's no better way, and he would have said that that was his favorite job. So that was kind of my interview process. I guess it was just taking advantage of the opportunities that were in front of me, and it was just a great fit.
I learned my hustle at school. So my undergrad was at UCF, and proud. I have nothing but good things to say about fraternity. I was an SAE, which is the largest fraternity in the United States. And that's where I honed in on the hustle. I was part of rush teams.
Yes.
And we all had to get together at the end of the night, and we're arguing over it. You had to get quorum, and we were having problems with kids slipping through our fingers because we couldn't pull the trigger fast enough. And so I was like, hey, let's break up into groups. Let's get 4 groups of 5. If we all trust get the bids out, because we could shoot them down later. Let's get something in their hands. And that's where I learned the hustle. And I know that you were a member of Chi Omega, and you've accredited that with being a part of your success.
Yes.
And in terms of how did that contribute to working at the Corker Group and the networking that you just talked about?
Well, believe it or not, when I started college, I didn't have a lot of confidence at all. I wasn't involved in anything. I worked through school, and it was my sophomore year that someone encouraged me to, get out of my comfort zone and go through Rush. And
Yeah.
I did, and it seemed like that's when I found my footing. And it taught me about leadership. It taught me about women supporting other women. I became president of my sorority in a short period of time. It gave me an outlet to try things in a safe environment. So you could fail and still feel supported. So that led me to get involved in lots of things on campus. So I learned really my time at UTC it changed me because of the leadership opportunities, and I started to come into my own. So I do credit just having support and the opportunities to get out and learn, grow to be a leader.
We'll circle back around UTC and probably finish there, because that's where your current role is. Like you've come back to give back, and I know you're in a development role, which is hard. I think those people, it's kind of like after you get 3 or 4 kids, like you should just get an award from the government if you can have that many kids. But if you're going to be in a development role for a university, I understand how difficult that is, because you're asking people for money. And I used to do it for a living. So what'd you learn from Bob? That what's the lasting impact that he had on you at the Corker Group? Because I'll get into him going to Congress and then working with Henry here in a second, but I'm fascinated by I did Liz's hair for a while, and so I've had a different insight. So again, I'm still parallel in this parallel universe with you, and did Kelly's hair also at Hairbenders after leaving the corporate world. And anyway, but tell me about his impact on you.
He has such integrity. Such integrity, and all of his decisions were made on what was best for the city. He had such love for the city. Even now, when he speaks about the city, sometimes he tears up. I saw him as mayor walk down the street and pick up trash that was on the sidewalk. He took it personal. And I think the reason that half his real estate was downtown, it was personal. It was a commitment to this city and to the growth of this city. I think that definitely had influence, especially going into River City, really understanding the relationships and how important the owners of these buildings were, and looking for folks that want to help the city grow in the right way. So just his integrity and really deep love. There was nothing selfish I saw about anything he ever did.
I think that's so on point, because when Bob was accumulating Mayor Corker Mr. Corker, I don't know what I'm going to be respectful.
Senator Corker.
Senator Corker was accumulating real estate downtown. It didn't have the sexy ROI that it does now. Right, it was coming out of Chattanooga. I mean, Chattanooga almost declared bankruptcy before the Lupton Foundation. They started off with the aquarium, but I kind of resented the fact, knowing what I knew, that they were, as when he became mayor, that they said, well, he's just doing this to help his own real estate. I'm like, hello, people. He was building his real estate when it wasn't a sure thing that it was a sure thing.
Yes.
I mean, it's like, so it's too soon to be hating on the man, because we don't know that this is going to be a home run. And here we are 25 years later, and it is. What do you think, what's your pinnacle moment for the Corker Group? What is something that you did there where you kind of hang your hat and like that's the lasting impact, or that was the deal, or that was the policy or contribution to the culture that I left the Corker Group with?
Well, we had a fantastic team, but when I started, I think we had like 73% occupancy, and when I left, we were full. And we were able to retain great tenants. Miller Martin has been a great tenant of Bob. There were lots of tenants that left after I left. But I think the fact that we were able to retain our tenants and really grow.
That's great. So I'm not sure how this works. Maybe we can do a little informing here. He gets elected to Congress, and he has to make a decision about the real estate portfolio. Does he not? Like, is he?
Yes.
I knew that it's probably easier just to go to Congress and not have to rebut it. But isn't there something in terms of being elected and having to like hand the business over, sell it, or transition in some way?
Or put it in a blind trust, which it wasn't a trust when he was mayor, but when he ran, so it was before he was elected. When he ran, he sold it. He sold the real estate. He kept the volunteer building, but you can't be a passive owner of real estate. And I think it was a good time. Again, the buildings were full. And yeah, he wanted to put his energy somewhere else. He still owns a volunteer building. He kept it. He wanted to have a presence with that. But yeah, so he sold the real estate. And with that, and I will say he was very generous. The management company sold too, and he was very, very generous with all of us when it sold. Because, I mean, that team was who ran it day to day and kept everybody happy. And so we were sold with the division was sold with real estate.
What year is that?
2005 or 6. Okay.
You were like one of the top of my list when I started the podcast. I want to have interesting people talk about real estate. So real estate's red hot. 05, 06. We're in a highly leveraged and compromised situation at a federal level for lending mortgages. And so Lucan Properties comes in and is purchasing Corker Properties. Is that smooth transition? Is that when you're at that size, when you're talking about millions of dollars, I mean, you're going with, you're part of the product, the package.
Yep.
And what's that process like? I mean, there's got to be attorneys, contracts. I mean, the deliberation, like we're negotiating. Can you?
Well, I mean, really, this was very unique. I mean, Corker worked out the deal with Henry Lucan on the back of a napkin. So he worked out the deal.
Wow.
So it was.
Stop it.
They worked out the deal. So it was really just taking care of the details. But yeah, he worked out the deal.
How did your tenure go with Lucan Properties? How would you look back and reflect on that? What's it like working with Henry?
So when Henry first purchased the company, he was very hands off because he had lots of other interests. It was, he had a yacht company. He had lots of other things. And so for about a year and a half, 2 years, there was nothing. I mean, we kept running it the way we were running it. Then he started to get involved with real estate and
tinkering.
Yeah, like you'd come in and there'd be something on the desk that he's purchased. I described it one way that I was a chief firefighter for a pyromaniac. So, but
Did you say salon owner?
no, that's funny. So he saw real estate different as a commodity, and it just wasn't. It wasn't the same. It wasn't. Yeah, he saw it as a commodity, and so at that time, I gotten very involved in the community. I was on the board of River City, and we were getting ready to start a search for a CEO, and a couple of the board members came to me to say, "We think you'd be great at this job."
Okay, so tell me about that moment. That moment. That's that right then. You're like, I thought I was helping with the search, and all of a sudden it's like
Yes.
you're.
Yes, it was a little intimidating because I thought, "Oh my gosh, I mean, I don't know about downtown development." And they said, "Yes, you have relationships. You do know about development. I mean, you have a team that you bring." So I think it was intimidating because after being on the board, I understood how important this organization was to our city. I mean, I think River
Critical.
City was really the key
Catalyst.
for everything downtown, and I just want to make sure I didn't screw it up.
So people are going to watch the podcast and they're not going to know the history, even though they might have lived here and they don't understand, oh my gosh, how did we get to have an aquarium? How did downtown grow so fast? And people don't know that people were flying in from China and Japan to study the model about reviving. You like that plug? That's the name of the med spa. Sorry, Kim. The city, because it was almost dead. And so, can you give us a little bit of backstory on how kind of River City was started and what they brought Chattanooga to the point where you became CEO?
Yeah, so River City was started back, I mean, way before the aquarium, when there was absolutely nothing downtown. And Jack Lupton, being the visionary, I mean, he has his fingerprints in places people don't even know, put money into River City. And what we did at that time was buy up a lot of property. Just to protect it, to make sure that it was planned the right way. I mean, great cities don't just happen. It is planning. It is community input. So I forgot how many acres, Jamie, at the time we owned downtown, but just about anything from the aquarium to past where the movie theater is now, really where the lookouts are now. I mean, River City owns.
Inside a nonprofit, though,
Yes,
right?
inside a nonprofit.
Yeah.
So it's a private nonprofit that was put together to be a nimble arm to city and county government. Because great development lasts over 4 years and takes over 4 years. And so you can't go political cycle to political cycle and keep that momentum. So we were a nonprofit. Both mayors sat on our board. I mean, it was linked to the city. And the way I like to describe it is our role was to find the gap, what our city needed, and to work to fill it. So early on, it was development. And so we built the first apartments downtown. We were involved with raising money for half the aquarium. You know, Jack Lupton put in half and the other half was raised. We were involved in the movie theater downtown. I mean, it was to create a city not built for tourists, but for residents. And it's amazing that now it's fantastic that tourists love it because I think we're an authentic city. So that was early on. When I got there, what we really needed was more housing, and I focused on a lot of the housing conversions downtown, some of the office buildings that got switched to apartments. So it's really, we pivot over the years just based on what the need was. When Corker was mayor, River City acted as the development arm for the riverfront. So we can do that. I mean, it's bringing in expertise. So we are supported by, I mean, the Lyndhurst Foundation and the Benwood Foundation, which have played just a critical role in our city, have been great supporters and funders over the years. And then River City operates by some of the real estate that's owned funds the operations. So it is working with the community, working on planning, and it really has been, I think, the reason that our city has been so successful. And you're right. I mean, when I was there for 11 years. We had probably a city, if not a month, every other month, that would come to try to learn how are you all so successful with public-private
Yeah.
partnerships. And I do think there is something in Chattanooga's DNA about working together for the good of the city, not as siloed as some cities are, not as territorial as some cities are. And I think that started with River City and the community process for the riverfront and the aquarium.
In the role with River City, did you guys see what was going to happen with like where Jimmy White's working on the riverfront? Was that on the radar yet on the
It
riverside?
was at the end. That was that, and then of course the lookout South Broad. That was on the radar for a long, long time. In fact, we were involved with trying to help with the master plan for that. I mean, early on. We're lucky that the owners wanted to wait and make sure the right thing happened. Sometimes it is easy to be critical about why doesn't anything ever happen on that property, but you sure would rather have nothing than the wrong thing. So we were real involved with that. We weren't as involved with Jimmy White's project, but it was starting to happen.
Interesting people. I did Candace Chasen's hair for a long time, and I think I can say they're part of that group, right?
South Broad for
South Broad.
Yeah, for the lookouts.
Now, is there and also a little bit of an environmental hold up there because it was a foundry, and I was kind of explained to me that, like, for example, when 212 was built, it was a gas station first, and they had to come in and like completely
Like encapsulate the soil.
the soil and like to do all this stuff because of the what's like seeped into the soil. There's this whole process that's involved. Am I right there?
Yeah. So I think they got some federal money to help with that. So they did have to do some remediation on that side. Just about anything you see downtown, there's some type of remediation that was done, just because we were a foundry city.
Do you agree with moving the stadium from where it's at to where it's going? I've heard people say like, "Wow, it's already built. Why do we need to move it?" It's kind of like, a lot of cities don't have a baseball,
Right.
a minor league baseball team and have that sort of attraction at the lookouts, And what's the need to use taxpayer dollars to get up and move it? But you personally, and because I respect your opinion, is that a necessity? And do you feel like it's part of like good growth moving forward?
I do. I think what a lot of people don't know that the original stadium there was no tax dollars used. It was Frank Burke's family built that, and it was River City property. So River City donated that property. They will get it back once they move. But if you think about baseball, how little that is used on a prime piece of property, and now what is and it's up on a hill and it doesn't animate downtown really. I mean, you see a lot of people parking and walking to the game, but it is so rarely used. You want something that is active all the time, and I think that's how baseball stadiums are designed now. And so, yes, I think it's a great time, and it will be a catalyst for a new part of town. And then the city has a fantastic opportunity to rethink what needs to be there because the land is in friendly hands, and there's going to be a process to think about what is best for long-term growth of Chattanooga. So
what do you think should go there?
I think there has to be a lot more density. So it's mixed use. It could be, it could be high-end condos. It could be apartments, condos. It's 13 acres of property. It could be, its own little city. I mean, its own neighborhood. But I think it needs a lot of stuff. It doesn't need a federal courthouse. That was a crazy idea. That was floated out there at one time. But it really, it needs to be on the tax rolls. I mean, it needs to benefit the city of Chattanooga. And having housing, hotel, I don't know what kind of retail is so hard to recruit, but something that's animated all the time will be great.
So speaking of for the benefit of Chattanooga, If I say Helen Burns Sharp, does that ring a bell with
Yes.
you?
Yes.
So I did Helen's hair for years. God rest her soul. COVID got her, and loved the woman because we had the most interesting conversations because I had such an affinity for her, but we were polar opposites on where we stood in terms of, I mean, basically politics, but she could see my side, right? Because I
Yes.
would talk to her from a small business owner's side, and I could see where she was coming from, but she spent like her retirement money suing the city and taking on companies like BlackRock because she disagreed with the TIF money that was given out because it was at the expense of the city and for the education fund. So my question is it an accurate statement to say that we've had, I'm not including Bob in this statement, but past leadership that has sold out to developers and done a couple of things like compromise the budget for education through handing out TIFs to companies that were already in Chattanooga, and was development made and in an effort to appease those developers, like parking sacrificed so they wouldn't have to build parking decks. I mean, there's a lot of questions involved in there, but it's all kind of it's sort of interrelated in the way that Chattanooga's gotten to this growth. Am I fair there at all?
No.
Okay, good. Well, good. I would rather feel better about
Yeah.
it. So,
So development is so difficult and it's so expensive. I think there is a time and a use. I mean, TIFs weren't given out left and right, so you had to go through a process. But to incent the right type of development. So I think TIFs can be and should be used in instances. Let's say there were incentives given for some developers to take empty buildings downtown to turn into apartments. Well, it's real expensive and it doesn't cash flow. You can't make the numbers work if you don't get some type of incentive sometimes on certain developments. So there is a process, number one. I didn't see a pay for play ever. I saw us trying to attract and keep great industry. And
okay.
it is such a competitive world. I mean, companies can go anywhere. They can pick up and go to Nashville. I mean, we have to be in the ball game and not give away things willy-nilly. Also on TIFs, companies pay the education piece. So the education piece was never compromised.
Okay.
Now, maybe years and years ago, and I think we'd only done like one TIF. Nashville, I mean, we were way behind on TIFs. Nashville and some other cities use it all the time. So there might have been, maybe there's one or two that were used and the education portion of taxes weren't paid. But now all the education piece is paid. So I think that to be a vibrant city, you have to look at every legal tool in the toolbox and then be judicious on how it's used. So, I mean, I always respected Helen, maybe not respected exactly how she went about things.
Correct.
We were almost always on two different sides because I think there's some conspiracy theorists out there about, oh, we're doing all this for all these developers to get rich. I mean, if you're working with a developer and you're looking at the pro forma and no, it can't happen, and we're trying to attract new housing or whatever, we're not giving anything away we don't already have. So that's one thing about TIFs. We're not giving them dollars. We're just saying we're going to freeze the taxes at a certain level for a certain number of years, and then those taxes will start being paid. So you're really incentivizing them to do the right type of a development. So I think that they should be used in certain instances.
She had a hang up with Black
Creek, yeah.
and that road that I think was in a residential neighborhood. That's been so long ago. I don't even know if I still remember the story. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, and we weren't. That was right before I got here too. That was approved. I mean, normally when you see TIFs, you see them in downtown areas or industrial areas, or it was unusual to have something like that in a neighborhood. The argument was this very expensive road needed to be built in order to unleash development for the rest of the development, and all those folks are going to be paying taxes. So, I don't know what their financial argument was, but she was hung up on the road, and that was an unusual one. Most developers in a subdivision, you recoup your money so quickly because of all the houses you buy, you build, and you sell, and you recoup your dollars. So I don't know what went on about how that was approved or got through.
So let me circle back around to the Broad Street. What is the city? Because I don't even know. What's the city have planned to go out there, and as part of the master plan, what's the net impact going to do to kind of round out that southern part of the city leading up to Lookout Mountain?
Yeah, so I know there was a redesign looked at. When I was there, we looked at it. I think it's been looked at for years because Broad Street is so wide and it's not utilized. So how can you when you think about great cities, you think about a Charleston, a Savannah, even Greenville, South Carolina. Their streets are animated. There's stuff on the sidewalk. They're more narrow. We don't need a 4-lane dead ending at the aquarium. So we've looked at through the years, how can we expand sidewalks? I don't know what the final design was, but that's the idea, is to narrow it, use the real estate, so to speak, in a better way. And then we have a tremendous opportunity with TVA. TVA, that whole building just disconnects South Broad. The way it's designed, there's nothing on the street. So knowing that they want to sell 2 of their buildings, and we have an opportunity to take those buildings down and connect it all the way visually.
Take them down.
Yes.
So do away with them.
Yes.
I've got good friends that are in executive positions at TVA, and they were trying to sublease at COVID like hundreds of thousands of square feet because people went home.
Yes.
But they were still getting the efficiency of not out of the production for working at home. That's fascinating just to take them down. It's a little bit of an eyesore. So Kim, I got married at the Chattanooga.
Yes.
I was Harriet and I were the first wedding at the Chattanooga. And I went outside and I was on the cell phone with my mom and I said, "You got to see this place, Mom, the wedding venue. Oh my God, this is the biggest hotel I've ever seen." Because I was looking at TVA and I was associating it with being part of the Chattanooga. And I was like, "You got to be able to see this thing from space, Mom." And I didn't realize I was looking at I was still new to Chattanooga.
Yeah.
I didn't realize I was looking at the TVA. So that's interesting, taking it down. So okay, if that comes down and we open up the skyline there, what kind of obviously homes, but I kind of just pictured something like SunTrust Park. Like you just want to go down to what do they call that? Andrew, what do they call the SunTrust Park? The Armory or where those restaurants are by the basement.
In Atlanta.
In Atlanta?
Yeah.
I kind of envisioned something kind of like that.
Which would be fantastic if you could. I mean, one use that they've been talking about is that's where the federal courthouse needs to go. That could be a catalyst for just things around it. It would open it up. It would give it a new, really, it would just feel different and could attract some additional development. I mean, right now there's no man's land. Thank goodness we have Warehouse Row. Thank goodness we have Warehouse Row.
Which is falling apart.
And that's really the animator we have on that part of town.
That's a beautiful building.
It is.
Why do we need a new courthouse?
I don't know.
Because there's two, right? There's an old one and there's the current one. And is it just too small? What are they going to do with the second one?
Where the post office is.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a beautiful building. It would be beautiful redevelopment. It would be unbelievable condos. I have no idea, but they've been on the list for a long time. I think because safety, security, the size. I guess the argument has been it's inefficient. I don't know if it couldn't be renovated. I have no idea, but they finally got in queue for a new federal courthouse. Now, all that could change with what's going on in Washington, but and so they've been looking at sites.
And maybe in the last 12 or 18 months, Mayor Womp had a problem with, I think it was the cost of what the Broad Street project was going to be. I should have done a little more research on that. It just kind of came to mind as I'm sitting here talking to you. Do you remember what his axe to grind was? Because I think it was to redevelop that property was going to cost taxpayers X, I think. And then he was saying, then the number came back. I mean, that's got to be a fluid situation when you're developing property. We just can't decide today that it's going to be
Right.
this and get locked in on that number.
Yes.
If it's for the growth of the city and it's for everybody's best interest, I'm okay with that. But I don't even remember the situation. Do you?
Yeah, no, I don't.
Okay.
I do know that it's it would be an expensive project, and again, we've looked at it. We looked at it when I was there, and I haven't been there in 4 years. So,
Are they going to keep 275 where it is, or do they move 275 and make that all of that riverfront property? Because that would be neat. Is to just to have to move. I mean, that sounds. I don't know. I don't know how you rebuild an interstate that goes all the way up to like Kentucky, but it would be neat if all that property was actually on the river.
yeah. So are you talking about just the riverfront piece?
The Broad Street area.
Yeah,
Like, yeah.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah. If it connected right to the
yes.
river, I know that. Again, there's a plan that's been done on rethinking that riverfront, which is, as a city, you've got to keep reinventing and looking at it. The street is still there, but it may be narrowed, which would be helpful.
I think as part of that plan, the oh gosh, what's the high school that is so close there? Howard. And I know that there's some federal housing, and people get up in arms about like regentrification. How does that impact that area if the Broad Street is developed? And that word gets thrown around a lot, and I think it gets used politically. But what happens to the area where you have that federal housing in that area? Because I think they were talking about like redoing the school and which sounds to me like an upgrade, right?
Yes.
Like you have an opportunity to have maybe newer facilities. But how does that integrate to the public school system and subsidize housing?
So there were incentives given, and it was and finally an opportunity to invest and rebuild the housing. So there was a commitment made that all the residents would have an opportunity to stay there if they wanted to stay there. So
Very cool.
It's a lot of property, and I think again rethinking what it looks like. I think it's fantastic to be an investment in an underdeveloped part of or underinvested part of the city. So when Jimmy White went for incentives in that group, that was their commitment too, that they would also do some housing on their property. And
Okay.
so I think it's a win. It's great that we have folks from here who understand our city, like the Chazins, like Jimmy's team, that want to invest and do the right thing.
I'm trying to get him on this podcast. If he can help me, I think we're connected on LinkedIn, but I would love to have him on to talk about his project.
Yeah.
So maybe we can talk about that after the podcast. Let me see. So after River City, how long was your tenure there?
11 years.
11 years. And so let's talk about some projects that you were at the helm and pioneered for that decade plus that you're at River City Company.
Yeah. So one that I'm really excited about and I love to talk about is the climbing gym downtown.
Yes.
Which River City owned that property, and it was totally out of the box. And the fact that we were able to put a climbing gym right in the heart of the city, I said, it's like putting a big exclamation point to say, this is who we are as a city. We're a rock climbing city, and you can see it. So, I mean, that would not have happened unless River City was able to help subsidize bringing that here. And I think it's beautiful. Local architect, local owners, it's just a home run. Several buildings that got turned into apartments. The James Building, not the James Building, the, oh my gosh, what's the building?
The one
Right next to the James Building. I'm totally drawing a blank. I know it like the McClellan Building. The McClellan Building got turned into apartments. They got a TIF. That was an historic building. It was great that we were able to really utilize that. The 700 block of Market, which has apartments on it, that was the first new housing we've had in a long time. So that got developed. We redid Miller Park, helped raise money for that. So, and we were involved in lots of things. Again, we have fingerprints in a lot of places people don't even realize. There's a lot of plans that I think eventually will happen. We did a lot of work on thinking about a healthcare corridor. And, UTC is getting ready to break ground on a nursing building that will be on that corridor. I mean, development takes so long. I mean, it could be years and you go back and say, oh, I was involved in that plan. But yeah, I think one of the things I am most excited about and happy about when I look back is bringing housing downtown.
How is our downtown population in numbers compared to Nashville?
I don't know specifically, but there's really no comparison. You go to Nashville any day of the week, and there's cranes everywhere. I keep thinking, how do they keep building and finding sites? I will say our downtown population and just the downtown environment has changed a lot. If we had not had housing and had hotels, when COVID hit, we would have had a total dead downtown. I mean, you think there's some cities still trying to recover from COVID because of that. But I mean, we have restaurants that we were able to keep going. But people quit going back to work, and we're still seeing that. I mean, it's changed. We have all these hotels going up right now in downtown Chattanooga, which brings lots of folks walking. But the business environment is a little different. There's just not as many business folks.
I want to talk about that in just 1 second. First of all, thank you for the climbing gym. My 16-year-old was on the climbing team, and we did it for a couple of years. And it really helped to launch and sustain a program at Silverdale, where my kids go to school, to have a climbing program.
That's great.
And so, it's just like a football game or a basketball
Yes.
game. And we were competing against other schools, and to be able to go to a central location, and you can't get rained out. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And then the ultimate safety. And so that was a neat add-on,
Yes.
I think, for the school to have that sort of, to offer it as a sport for the school. So no, definite, very, very cool addition. Oh my gosh, I just lost my train of thought. We were talking about before that.
COVID.
So now, did you see, while you were at River City Company, did you see the impact of the Great Resignation, where people were quitting their jobs and they're like, I'm just going to go try and do something else. I'm going to show the man that, I'm more valuable. The grass is greener on the other side of the fence. And some of that was changing careers. Some of that was like, I want to make sure I can stay at home. So did you see any of that in Chattanooga, and was the River City Company affected by that at all?
No, I mean we really weren't affected. And it's a very small team at River City, but we do work with government. We work with lots of folks that, yes, we saw the impact of that. We also were the beneficiary, or as a city, of some of that, because if you could live anywhere, and we have fantastic internet, and you can do it from
Right.
home.
Yeah.
So we were able to attract, as a city, a lot of great talent during that time.
The gig city. I love it, especially for the stuff that we're doing here,
Yes.
to be able to hop on and at light speed get things done. Because I've been trapped trying to do projects where we're working on, digital assets. And if you don't have good Wi-Fi or good internet, everything comes to
I know things that you take for granted. And I think especially during COVID, you were able to see, boy, some of these big cities don't have great internet.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were very, very lucky. EPB has been a catalyst for bringing great talent to the city.
So for EPB, the engineer that figured out how to mount the device to the power pole to run the internet, his son and daughter go to Silverdale, and Candace was a vice president, just retired from EPB, but he's credited with taking it from 3 or 4 hours to like 30 minutes, and getting the installation on the power pole so that the network could come to fruition. And his son's name is Talon. David is his name. The last name
David
is
Wade. David Wade's the president right now of
no.
EPP.
This was just he was David was important, but he was an engineer, like at that
Interesting.
more on the ground, boots on the ground level of figuring it out. And his name will come to me.
Well, they're a great company, and they've been a great partner at River City and at UTC. So, and they're great for the whole city. So they're not your typical power company for sure.
No, and when I was at UBS and they said that the EPP building was going to go next door, hadn't even been conceived really yet. And I thought, God, why do they need that huge building? And now all these years, I was like, okay, this is why they needed that huge building.
Yes.
So, yeah, thank God for EPB. I mean,
Yes.
on a daily basis, I thank EPB. The transition from River City Company, was that straight to UTC from there, or
Mayor's race.
mayor's race?
So I had to resign to run. And I had been there 11 years. Over the years, people had encouraged me to run. And it's not that I'd always wanted to be a mayor. It was, I wanted to make a difference in the city. And I go back to Corker, who said, if you really want to make a difference in the city, there's no better way to be mayor. And working with several administrations, I saw what was broken. And I felt like I had been blessed to be in a position to learn about our city in a very unique way. And I really felt it was a calling. And that's what I was supposed to do.
You're supposed to feel that way.
So, so I left there in 2020 and then campaigned, and then, of course, the election was in 2021. So after I lost the runoff, I decided I had just to regroup. It was exhausting, especially the runoff part was just exhausting. And back then, with COVID, I mean, trying to campaign, there were Zooms all the time. It was a time for me just to
Catch your breath.
recharge. Yeah. So I said, okay, I'm not going to go back to work until the end of the year. Just let's take, I think that was April. The day after the election, my phone rang and someone said, there's a job at UTC that you're perfect for. And I'm going to think about a job. And so they told me what it was. And I call myself a serial volunteer because for 20 years, I have done everything for UTC in the system you can do volunteer-wise. I mean, I've been on the board of the trustees for UT. I was president of the Alumni Association for UTC. I was on the UC Foundation board for years, and then I chaired it. Again, I've done everything you can. So I knew that it was a rebuild. I mean, I'd seen the organization, and I didn't have the energy at that time, especially. But I love the school, and I know. But people over the course of several months kept calling to say, we're doing this search. It's a nationwide search, but your name keeps coming up as the perfect person for this role. And I guess it was September when I got a call to say, okay, just want you to think one more time because we're getting ready to close the position. And by September, I had a little more perspective, and I talked to my husband. I said, why not? I mean, I'd been offered some positions going work for some developers. I've been offered lots of sales positions. And UTC was as authentic to me as downtown work was. And I said, how could I be so lucky to be in another position doing something I love for an organization I love, and in my career that way? So I did put my name in. It was a nationwide search. You go through the whole process. And so I started in December and of 21. Yes. So I've been there. It was 3 years this past December, so I'm working on 3.5. And when I went, I said, this is not long term. What I want to do is come in and rebuild this organization for success. And I feel like I know it good enough that I can hit the ground running and I can make some tough calls of what needs to happen structurally. I guess because I was a known entity. And so I did. I came in, I rebuilt a team. Last year we got a $30 million gift from Gary Rollins, which was incredible. But if you even take that one-time gift out, we raised over $30 million last year. We've already raised
60 total.
Yeah, 60 total. Biggest year ever in the history. This year, we've already raised over $30 million. And our fiscal year doesn't close till the end of June. But when I came in, I said, year after year, we ought to be able to raise $20 million a year for UTC. We just haven't been out there telling the story and telling the community how important, what the important role that UTC plays for producing talent. You can't have a great city without a great university. We have both. We just need to connect the two. And it's interesting, when I was at River City, one of our big pushes was to work with UTC to pull those students off the hill. And I said, so now I'm seeing it from the other side. How do we pull the community up on campus? So it has been absolutely a labor of love. I was going to step down at the end of last December and maybe do some work for the foundation, something that would give me more flexibility. But then our chancellor stepped down, and they asked me to stay until a chancellor was put on. So we should have a new chancellor in June, and then we'll see what that looks like. But I've built a fantastic team. It's a great group that's out there, and we are connected, and we are telling UTC's story. So it's one of those things that you build an organization, and you want to be able to walk away at a good time. And so I feel good about where we are.
I had the very cool opportunity to do hair for everybody in development at Sewanee for 10, 15 years. And I've done the hair for the last two wives of the Vice Chancellor, going back literally 20 years, which is, I've had this very cool introspective look at what it's like to be in the development at a religious school, liberal arts school. So obviously very different from UTC, but networking is critical, and the people in development have got to be connectors. It's not a job for introverts.
Right.
I mean, there's a certain skill set there, and I don't know if I'm sure you've taken a DISC test, Kim, where you know your personality type, and the C's aren't quite cutting it. You got to have a bunch of I's in there that have a little bit of D, but then also a little bit of S, because you got to be supportive. We got to make everybody feel good about getting on board, and so, what was lacking at the office when you got there? And let's talk for a second about your team. And if you want to highlight some people or some systems that you put into place to make this so effective, because it sounds to me, and I actually know this personally, that you've turned it into a bit of a machine. Like autopilot could be a strong word. We don't want to, we're grateful for all of the money that's come in, like obviously the money from Mr. Rollins. But like, if you feel like you could leave this and it's in a good place, you've obviously put the right people in the right seats on the bus. And so what was it like when you got there? And what did you do to turn this development office into such a success?
So I think, one, we had some folks, maybe they were on the wrong seat in the bus. And they'd gone through COVID. It had just gone through a lot of transition. But when I got there, really, just about everybody had either self-retired or there was a couple I had to retire myself. But I think it was just a demotivated group of people that had not been really empowered. But as far as fundraisers, all my fundraisers are new. Because, like you say, you have to be connectors. You have to have passion. You have to have energy. You have to be excited about what you're doing. You have to look for the positive opportunities. And I think it was just a different mindset. So when I look back over my career, my favorite thing is building teams. I think I'm good at building teams. And not just hiring who has a skill set on paper, but identifying talent and then sometimes letting people figure out their own. You bring them in, you know they're talented, and let's see kind of where it goes. So it's empowering folks. It's giving them the tools. It's being there to support. So I really do believe in servant leadership, that I am there to help make sure everybody else is successful. And for UTC, it was just getting people that were connectors, and introducing them to folks and being consistent and putting systems in place so you are consistent. You know, we're a city. I used to quote the number 1,600. I think we have more than that, 1,600 nonprofits in town. If you are a
What did you just say?
we have at least 1,600 nonprofits. I think we have more than that, but we have at least, that's the number I used to always quote, was 1,600. If you are a nonprofit that needs to raise money and you aren't consistently getting your message out and sending information and asking for the order, there are plenty of others that are going to come in and do it. So it's having systems that you're consistent. So I think that's the big one. The beauty at UTC is we have a fantastic story to tell. I mean, it is a wonderful school. We are changing lives. We see it every single day. As someone, when I was in school as a working student, I received a partial scholarship my junior year, which allowed me to do a lot of the things I did that taught me about leadership. When I had the ability to give back, I endowed a scholarship to do the same thing. I get to tell that story. It's true to me, and it's true to thousands of students about how scholarships do change lives and they change families. So we have, I think, a fantastic, it's a great job. We're out there telling the truth. So we're giving opportunity, we're giving people the opportunity to see a window into a real jewel in our city. And it doesn't hurt that UTC men won the NIT, and you have Chattanooga all over. Athletics is a big driver. It's a big front door for folks that didn't go to UTC that want to come and enjoy sports in a easy, inexpensive way. And so it's capitalizing on all that too. So the better the sports teams do, it helps with our brand.
To get the message out, it's so funny. You just hammer on a nail that I love. The message has got to be consistent. It's also helpful if the message is aesthetically pleasing, and it's done in a way where you can effectively convey the message and be able to use the media multifaceted and to get it out as effectively and efficiently as possible from a cost standpoint. I happen to know these guys that can do that. And we would asking for the opportunity to volunteer our services to help the university with their message. If we can bring people in and talk about the projects that they have and how they can help, we would like to be an arm for UTC. That was part of bringing you here.
That would be fantastic.
Because the our I feel like our content is on point, but we're using the long form, for the channel, and can give the entire episode to the foundation, the university to use. But we'll take this, and the boys in an afternoon will chop this up and turn it into between 30 and 50 shorts that can be put out on all of the interrupter sites like your Instagram, TikTok, and X. That can be used for single posts. And then can be distributed, so
that's incredible.
That message can be put out. But I hope that we can. I don't want to close here, but I hope that we could be a tool to the university.
That would be awesome.
And so that they can talk about projects, fundraisers, whatever it is, messaging, and this is an inexpensive way to do it, and we would love to have that responsibility.
Well, that would be a tremendous opportunity, Jamie. We'll definitely take you up on that.
So now you're raising money and you're good at it, which is super cool. Everyone's got an idea to spend the money, right? That's I don't.
There's no lack of opportunities.
There's no. But what are the university's goals with the money? What are some things that you guys have raised money for? What are some objectives that the university's working on right now?
So what we do, we sit down with the chancellor and with the deans to try to identify some of those priorities. Again, a donor can give to whatever they want to give to, but what we spend time and energy on are campus priorities. The biggest one has been, I guess there's two big ones right now. They're big capital projects. One is a new nursing building, and that will break ground soon, on across from the health department, and it will enable us to double our School of Nursing, which if you've been to a hospital recently or anytime, we need more nurses. We raised $21 million for that. We still have some to raise, but it was a $21 million campaign. We're getting ready to double the size of the Rollins College of Business, and that was a $30 million gift from Gary Rollins plus $66 million from the state. And the state of Tennessee has been they've invested a lot in their campus, and we're so appreciative of being part of the system.
Was that a matching funds kind of situation with what Gary did?
No, it got us probably up on the queue because there wasn't any other capital for a 4-year institution in Governor Lee's budget, and that one did make it, I'm sure, because of the $30 million that was already there. And so we will raise some additional dollars for that for some of the programming that goes into the building. We raise a lot of money for scholarships. The athletic department needs a lot of love with everything going on with NIL, trying to keep student athletes. We're working on a women's sports complex, which I think is a really cool and will get a lot of traction. We also do professorships. I mean, so again, no lack of things, but the big ones have been those 2 big capital projects trying to raise money around there. When the UC Foundation was started back in 1969, and that's when when we merged with the UT system, it used to be University of Chattanooga. When they merged, there was $6 million that was received, and that $6 million was set aside by a group of trustees who said, we want to put this in a foundation specifically for our campus, not part of the UT system, but for our campus. That $6 million has grown to over $220 million.
Wow.
From generous donors and of course being good stewards of the endowment. And then the UC Foundation also owns 1,600 beds of student housing on campus. So many years ago when UTC was a commuter school, we were a change agent in building the housing that was needed to grow that campus. So it's been a really important, and really for a campus of our size, to have a foundation of its size is a real difference maker.
I'm excited about the School of Nursing. My wife and I took a bold initiative and opened up a med spa 6 years ago. And we are now one of the top 350 in the country. Here in Chattanooga, we're in Chattanooga, Cleveland, and in Nashville. And I love the female empowerment side of that.
Yes.
They went from making, pittance at the hospital, and they're all making, and when I say hundreds of thousands of dollars as employees,
Yes.
it's all individually, and that's with an S on that, hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I love that because there's such an opportunity, and so also for health, right? Like for standard of care, but there's other opportunities if you feel like you want to have other avenues.
Yes.
That you have a career opportunity where you can go and make, MD money doing something that's inside the field, directly related, but not necessarily working in the hospital. So I think it's a huge accomplishment.
Yes.
And I'll brag on my wife's first cousin, Chris Tamaris, graduated from UTC, and people are like, "Yeah, UTC is my backup school." And I'm like, "Yeah, Harriet's cousin went to UTC, and he got his undergrad there." And like, "Yeah, what's he doing?" I'm like, well, "He's one of the top 4 neurosurgeons in Atlanta, inside the loop. My house fits inside his garage." So it's not. Don't think about it as a backup. It could be a primary. And you could do okay coming out of UTC.
I think what UTC is a jewel in that you get to know the faculty. I mean, you aren't. I mean, the class sizes are small. We have right now a little less than 12,000 students. UTC wants to grow to 15,000 by 2030. It has some of the top programs in the country. I mean, the nursing program is number 1 in the state. It's a fantastic program. We have the Rollins College of Business has some incredible programs and students. So it's interesting to say back up, but you wouldn't believe some of the people that have graduated and the experiences. And, a lot of kids want to go away to school, and they may go to Knoxville, and it's amazing the ones that come back their sophomore year. But 67% of the students at UTC are not from Chattanooga. We are a great recruiter of talent. So Knoxville, Nashville, Memphis, a lot of students come there. We have some international students. So yeah, I'm really anyone that has ever gone to UTC and haven't been on campus in a while ought to come do a tour. We give tours all the time. But you'd be very proud to say you graduated from that university.
So this a podcast operates out of Wolfhead Consulting, and it is a full stack boutique digital media agency. And our workload changes every 30 to 45 days with the acceleration of, AI, using tools like ChatGPT and Grok and Gemini. Can you speak to where UTC is with their digital media program and how they're using or keeping up with the light speed that technology's on right now?
I really can't. That's one that program I haven't done a dive. I know that as a whole, the system is looking at how we use AI, how we put AI into every classroom experience, what we do with it. I think in higher ed, there's a huge opportunity, and it needs to be part of all curriculum.
So I'm sure that you talked about being ready when the next Vice Chancellor, what's the head of school called?
Chancellor.
Chancellor. Okay, comes to UTC, that you're ready to step back and you're ready for the next chapter. What projects or what have you built out for the foundation for after you leave, like in your absence, what they're going to grow to or conquer next?
Well, I think it is just really continuing the momentum on fundraising is one thing. I do think the foundation can still play a role in real estate. We have the flexibility, and UTC needs housing, so maybe we do something off campus and look at some of the opportunities around campus, how we can still do some things to help the university, but maybe not on campus. The foundation has a board of 28 trustees. They are community leaders, business leaders. Some are graduates, some are not. But it is a great group of very connected, very smart leaders in the community.
Quick history lesson for anybody that wants to know the worthless knowledge that's rolling around in my head. Paul Revere was in the Watchtower. Okay, 1 if by land, 2 if by sea, right? The redcoats are coming. And what a lot of people don't know is that there was 3 people in the tower, but we only hear about Paul Revere. And because if you go back to our nation's history, he's one of the first documented connectors in the community, kind of like a Kim White.
Yeah, I love that.
Okay.
I love that.
By the way, he also invented the concave mirror that shed the light, which was the technology that broadcasted the signal. And so I love that part of the story too. Not only was he a socialite and connected, but he was a brilliant man all unto himself. And so he knew who to go to spread the word, which taverns to stop at, so that we could, alert everybody to, the danger. But to that story, the question I want to ask is, what resources did you tap? What relationships to propel the success at the foundation with UTC, throughout your history to make that program go? And how have they contributed?
I think it's using all the relationships that I've had in the city. I have been involved in so many boards. I just know who people are. And I think, running for mayor, I don't know if that helped at all. But it helped a lot of people maybe know who I was. The people that worked on my campaign were people I've worked with my entire career back here. So I think it is, it's using all those. It's amazing to me. I have such an unusual career path, and lots of folks do, but how one door leads to another door that leads to another door. And, when I was running for office, I got the question all the time, what are you going to do if you don't win? And I knew that God would lead the way. I mean, I never had
Amen.
any fear about that. Like I could have never even imagined my career path. It's just one door leads to another door, and it's being sometimes brave enough to walk through it, or trusting your gut and inner voice and knowing that it's the time to do it. So building on all those relationships, that's helped. That's helped my time at UTC. I have been involved with that program since I moved back to town. And in fact, that was one of the first things when I came back, you realize what made an impact on your career. And I knew UTC had changed my life. I didn't know that at the time, but 20 years later I did. And I said, that's one of the first things I want to get involved in. And I joined the alumni board. So I think hopefully I'm paying it all forward and for lots of folks. But I think, you make contacts and you talk about what is important to you and what you're passionate about, and the rest comes.
Kim White, do you have it in you to run for mayor again?
No. I think I don't regret doing it at all. I don't regret doing it at all, but it was the time. It was the right time, right place. It was the right time for me personally, professionally, but no. Right now, my husband and I want to travel, a little more flexibility than what I have. And I felt like I tried to be a change agent and make a difference, and I feel good about that. So many people can sit on the sidelines and throw stones. And I feel like if you see something that needs to be changed, then you need to be the one to try to do it.
So have you ever Googled yourself?
Yes. It's been a while. I did it a lot, even though they told me not to when I was running for mayor. I tried to stay off social media.
So I could talk for a really long time on digital media and how you build a knowledge panel on an entity with Google, which is any person, place, thing, or idea. It's difficult to have a knowledge panel because there has to be enough information on you for Google to create said panel to fill in the blanks to give people the card catalog for
Yes.
who you are. And so have you seen your Wikipedia page? Did you know you had a Wikipedia page?
I didn't know I had one until I had a nephew that called me and said, "How did you get a Wikipedia page?" And I said, "I don't know. I didn't know I had a Wikipedia page." But
So for shits and giggles, okay, if you've got ChatGPT and you've got either deep research or you've got one of those, ask it. So, ChatGPT, what's it take? How difficult, or can you help explain the metrics to me for an individual to accrue a Wikipedia page? Kim, it's difficult. You have to go do a lot of things. If you're not creating a campaign, when I say campaign, I'm talking about for office. I mean, like, I'm going to have a Wikipedia page. You have to understand a lot of things to do because you have to work from the extremities of the internet and Wikipedia's branches to get to the trunk to have a Wikipedia page. It's hard, and you have one. So congrats. We created, Andrew and I are calling it a swipe file, but we have a prompt that we use. It's a series of prompts to create a content brief for every guest. And we use deep research to crawl all the far reaches of the internet to come up with all of the things that give me a biography on the person, but then also talking points, accomplishments, points of interest, points of conflict. And yours was 15 pages long.
oh my goodness,
And so I'll print off for you. I sent it to
please
you.
do.
Yeah.
Then I can tell you if it's true or not.
At the end of it, though, this is interesting. It talks about the awards, the accolades, and women of interest, and the ways that you've been recognized by the general public for the things that you've done. Give me one or two that you're most proud of, and tell me why.
I received an award for being one of the top 10 graduates from the University of Tennessee system.
Hot dog.
And I was blown away at that because, one, I'm not a $1 million donor or a multi-billion dollar donor.
Right, you didn't pay
Definitely-
for it.
Yeah, yeah. So that one I was really, really proud of. I've been recognized as a top business leader. I'm very proud of that. I think to the point there are not a lot of women business leaders, and that was nice. The Gordon Davenport Award from Erlanger for community service, that meant a lot.
That's Crystal Company, right?
Well, that is the Davenports were Crystal Company, yeah. So he was a big community leader and giver, and so Erlanger gives a award every year at their distinguished whatever. But that was a nice award. But yeah, so all those it's nice. But I think the biggest one was the UT system piece.
I like that. I don't want to get into the next chapter with the travel that you and your husband are going to do, but whether it's civically or professionally, what's the next chapter look like for Kim White after the UTC Foundation?
I still think I can do something with the foundation. I'm talking to them about ways I can still be involved, maybe in special projects or give up the Vice Chancellor role, which is very university and event oriented, and maybe just do something with the foundation. I have not been on boards in a while. When I ran for mayor, I came off all boards, and this role that I have right now is all consuming, so I couldn't do that. So I probably want to I feel like I've done so much of that that it would take something really special for me to jump back in and get involved. I feel like I've done so much for the community, and one of the things that mean the most to me is my family. I don't have children. I have nephews. A brother, sister, my mom is still here and getting older. My husband's getting older. And I feel like if anything that I've sacrificed, and they've sacrificed a lot for me to be me. My husband, I couldn't have done what I've done without my husband being totally supportive. Even though I know he was glad I didn't win, he was very supportive. He wanted me to win if I wanted to win. But we look back and say, God, quality of life, I just can't even imagine. So I think it's time for me to spend some time there.
I love that. That's a good way to close. This has been a great, I don't know, for hour, I don't know where we're at, but I so appreciate you coming in. I've wanted to have this conversation for a long time. And I think you're a quiet giant. I know there's a lot of people that know who you are, and there's a lot of people that understand some of the things you've done. What's the word I'm looking for? The entire collage is huge as far as Kim White's footprint on in Chattanooga, and we need more people that give with that passion and with that servant leadership. So thank you so much, and I hope we have an opportunity to see you again, and we can work with you to contribute to the university moving forward.
Thank you, Jamie. It's been a pleasure. It's really been a great morning.
Thank you.
Thanks.